Yo, what's good, YouTube? What's good? This is Stormybman, and welcome to another edition of the Friday Night Chop Session with Stormy B Man. This is the final show of the year of 2019, for it is December 27th, 2019, Friday night. And we are so glad that you are here to join us and enjoy another wonderful Friday evening of boxing talk as we prepare to ring in the new year. We want to do a little retrospect as well as to where we found ourselves, toward the end of this year, the events that have transpired, fights, various events that make us appreciate the sport and anticipate what's to come. I want to say thank you and salute to everybody that's out there. Please smash the like button as you come in and join us for another boxing talk. And I'd like to introduce my man Reggie Owens, Boxing Conversation with Reggie Owens, who's here with me again for another evening of boxing talk for you. How you doing, Reggie? What's going on with you, brother?
Man, doing good, man. Ready to get into this conversation, man, and get this week started with. And also check out the Eye of the Storm you got rolling. I know you're gonna talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll touch on that if we get a chance. And it's just it's another chance for us to come together and show our appreciation for the sport by talking about the good things in the sport. We've had an interesting year. Some upsets. We've had some great matchups, and even from across the sport, from the lower weights to the higher weights, the heavyweights, and it's just been great. And I look forward to a new year of more of the same, or even better. But I also like to say it's been a year for me starting this channel, and so many people have shown me some love and support and have tuned in regularly. I've had a chance to go back and look at some of my earlier material that I just, when I first started out, because I've only been doing this channel and producing content for a year as of the 18th of December. And it's amazing to see how many people have stuck with me for the ride. So it gives me a little encouragement to make me feel like maybe Stormy B Man is doing something correct. And with people like yourself, Reggie, who have continued to support me, Hyphy, and some other brothers and sisters out there that have just been very supportive, helping me with this particular show and so many other things. I just want to say I appreciate all of you and thank you so much. And we hope to bring even better content as we go forward for the new year. Are you there, Rich?
Yeah, you had one silent. I was thinking the signal dropped.
No. The signal's good. I just, that was my appreciation moment. I was just letting you guys know how much I appreciate you all and how you supported me, man. Content creators, as well as, people who have just joined in as part of the community, who have supported so many other channels. I want to say shout out to 78 Sports TV for taking me in as a member, and Black Fight Fan, all the brothers, the senior members of the community, so many people. And please forgive me if I don't mention all names, but I just want to let everybody know that Stormy B Man really appreciate you all and making me a part of the community and encouraging me, giving me chance to shine on different platforms and panels and whatnot. So as we come to the end of this year, I just want to make sure I say these things because, I'm a respectful person, and I acknowledge, where blessings come from, and I like to return them as well. So, look for Stormy B Man to just be stronger in 2020. So,
man, I second that.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. So, as we get ready to go into this evening's talk, Reggie, you and I have discussed how we were going to do this show, and we're going to reflect on a lot of the fights that we had a chance to enjoy, and we both have compiled some a list of some events that have transpired. This is not necessarily the best of this or that or whatever. It's actually an acknowledgement of the year and a retrospect. So, one of the things I would like to do is kick it off with a little rematch that took place early in the year, where we had a chance to see the rematch between Sora Runvingsai and Estrada, part 2. These two brothers, when they fought, and they the little guys, the super flies, you know what I'm saying? It's like when they got a chance to mix it up, it was a very interesting fight. I like to watch boxing across the board. I don't have a favorite weight class. I just have a favor for when the sport is competed at a high level. And I like to say that these two gentlemen, Rungvisai had a chance to become champion after dethroning Chocolatito, who was built and hyped up by another network that is no longer around doing boxing. But he came crashing down when he ran into this young whirlwind of a fighter who was very strong at the weight, powerful, and who was hungry. I don't know if you had a chance to see their fight, Reggie, the Chocolatito and Rungvisai, but Rungvisai kind of went through. Yeah, he went through Chocolatito like he was a piece of a chocolate bar or something. He really put it on him. But when he and Estrada fought, it was a highly contested bout where skill came into play more than the power and strength. And the first fight was a close, narrow decision by Rungvisai. And the rematch had Estrada fighting at a different pace. And he really came in there to do some damage to Rungvisai after himself having dropped a close decision to Chocolatito a little over a year and a half before. How did you find this fight, Reggie? The rematch?
Man, I thought it was high action, man. Estrada brought it to him, man. Landing a lot of those, working down to the body of Rungvisai. He just beat him down and wore him down. And it was high action, high volume. I think the pace ended up being a little bit too much for Rungvisai because I think he lost that fight.
Yeah.
I remember Estrada being bringing the fight to him and doing a good job of going, mixing those punches up. He was a little balanced down to the head and body. So his attack was very balanced out. And I don't think Rungvisai was able to. I didn't see the first fight, so I thought maybe Rungvisai thought he'll get the same Estrada, and Estrada possibly coming in with this different plan of attack, and it worked.
Yeah, man. And the other thing about these guys, when they're fighting and battling at these smaller weights, you get a great chance to see technique. You get a great chance to see the skill set of boxing and boxers. Some people don't like to waste the time, and that's what they say, waste their time, to watch the little guys. But man, let me tell you something. You can see some great matches at these lower and lighter weights, man. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. And I look for more in the future where these guys will still be a part of things. I know that Chocolatito recently announced, after he fought earlier this week, actually, and he wanted to say that maybe come February he would like to try his hat in the arena again with Estrada. And if they do cross paths again, that's a nice little fight in early 2020 to look forward to, because I think Estrada has made leaps and bounds of him.
Man, he might as well wrap it up and choose a different course. And it's funny you got Estrada down, because I got Estrada down as one for a fight as well. But I think he's way beyond Chocolatito, and I think he's a little bit too big. He's pretty big for that weight. He looks a little big against Rungvisai as well. But he a dog. If Chocolatito think he gonna get back in here with Estrada, he's joking. Just based on how Estrada fought Chocolatito. Oh no, Chocolatito beat him, right? Yeah. I know they fought. Chocolatito. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. My ugly friend, the bufferer, has shown his head again somewhat, but we're gonna push through as best we can. So another fight on the horizon. Another fight that took place not long after that I wanted to mention is the bout that took place with Canelo Alvarez and Danny Jacobs. You know, going back to review that fight. How did you see that fight going into it, Reggie, and even as it played out? How did you feel about that particular fight?
I thought Danny Jacobs would be able to give Canelo some trouble based on what he did in his fight against Triple, which I thought Danny Jacobs. I favored Danny Jacobs slightly, even though Danny Jacobs didn't press the gas like he should have, so he left a little bit in the ring against Triple G. So I thought going into this fight, he'll pick up where he left off with Triple G and apply it to Canelo. And he came in this fight and left a little bit in the ring. He didn't lay it all out in the ring. He held back some. He had moments against Canelo. Canelo couldn't hurt him, but Canelo still styled on this dude. Danny Jacobs I don't know, he just didn't apply it. I don't know if he's afraid to apply pressure to taking something away from who the world views as being the premier fighter in the game, him not wanting to take that position by going in there and upsetting a big star. So I think he held back a little bit, but I can't take nothing from Canelo. Canelo's a dog, high tier caliber fighter, so I can't take away from him. But I think Danny Jacobs did not apply everything that he could in that fight against Canelo. And Canelo made him look bad at times, making it as if Danny Jacobs couldn't touch him. But I thought Danny Jacobs would have definitely broke Canelo down, because I was looking at Canelo dealing with the knee issue. Maybe Jacobs can put pressure on him, apply some of that weight, because Jacobs didn't adhere to the weight clause, so he took that little hit. So I thought he'll come in much bigger, more dominating in this fight with the additional weight, and he didn't do any of that. He just fought a boxer's fight. But kudos to Canelo for that one. He fought the way he was supposed to.
Yeah, as I was going back through my productions, my content that I put out, I remember I did a video after the fight where I actually referred to Danny as being a clown in this event, because he came out into the ring wearing red, black, and green. I'll never forget that. It looked like he, was on the proper trajectory with his, going in. But I was woefully unimpressed with his effort. And if there ever was a time to shine and step up and step out into the limelight, this was the opportunity. And I was really troubled with the fact that he didn't look like a guy who went in there to hurt the opponent. He didn't look like a guy who went in there to take the opponent's dinner. He didn't look like a lion, so to speak. He kind of just looked like a guy who was happy to be invited to the party, and he fought like it. There were a couple of moments when he landed some great shots where he refused to, get aggressive and follow up. In the meantime, Canelo went about his workmanlike fashion of figuring out Danny, what his strengths were in the ring, what his weaknesses were. And when he realized that Danny wasn't interested in being aggressive, he took the lead at will, and he also was able to rest, which was very important in moments in the fight where the opponent, which was Danny, didn't take advantage of those opportunities. When a guy is trying to rest, that's when you press him. And I was very disappointed in his efforts. Now, I've heard recently, even after the Chavez debacle, he wants a rematch. He's calling for an opportunity to get in there with him again, or even Triple G. And I hate when these young guys get out there and want to call themselves trying to get a rematch when the efforts that they put out the first time around don't even indicate that they are trying to take the trophy, which is a victory over these guys who have names and prestige, or perceived prestige, in the sport. I can't get down with that. I don't like guys who don't go out there and try to snatch opportunity by the throat. And so now I'm kind of like very jaded against fighters like Jacobs. There are a few others out there, and they may even be in these fights that we're going to talk about. But for him specifically, I'm just not feeling it. And I actually said when he dropped the decision to Canelo, I was like, I wish he would go away. I didn't want to see him fight anymore. And sure enough, he popped up on the scene just recently with another event that was lackluster and inconclusive, and it speaks to who he is as a fighter and what path he looks to seek. So that's what I have to say about him, and that particular event with Canelo, who quickly moved on beyond him onto bigger things. So, but as much as that was a downer, there was another fight that followed on the heels of that was very much uplifting. And that was the wonderful junior welterweight, the super welterweight, junior middleweight championship fight between Jarrett Hurd and Julian J. Rock Williams. Now that fight right there was a great fight, a fight fans fight, a fight that really showed you something that you didn't know about both fighters, but you could have felt or thought going in about either guy, and we got the verdict. What did you think about this particular dust up, Reggie?
Hey, that might be fight of the damn year. That was a spectacular fight, and I like it just based on Julian believing in himself, because even in my, and I can admit, didn't too much give him a chance, not being that the way he lost to Jamal Charlo, but kind of playing that in part, and as well as with who I thought Jarrett Hurd was, not who I thought, not taking up Jarrett Hurd looking like a juggernaut at this division. I just thought he was just going to be able to go into this division, dog out whoever they put in front of him. I thought he'll do Julian worse than what Charlo did to him, but it was against the bigger Charlo that he got caught with the punch that he got caught with. In the fight, he was still competitive with amongst Charlo. But also when I seen him making that comeback, the way he fought against Ishe Smith, it was a little bit of a cautious type fight, not kind of a blowaway fight. I think that fight with Ishe Smith and J-Rock I had is kind of a close fight. So I'm like, dang, J-Rock may have lost something. He don't have the belief in himself. And I was like, man, Jarrett Hurd's just too dangerous of a fight. And when everybody was counting this dude out, he rose way above the occasion. He rose to the goddamn next universe when he came into this fight against Hurd, and he put on such an amazing performance that it's definitely a fight of the year, because on top of that, he did it in Hurd's backyard in his hometown, and he went after a title. He got the opportunity for a belt, and he took it from this guy in his hometown. It was amazing stuff, man, and I love it that this dude believed in himself, and he also spoke about it, man. Never count a fighter out. Victory. He didn't speak down on Jared Hurd. He was a gentleman that night, man. I guess I don't like using that word for warriors, but he was a true soldier in that ring that night. He didn't shit on or try to clown the opponent he just defeated. It was spectacular, man. One of the fights of the year, man. But 2019 had so much heat in it. This definitely one of the fights of the year to me.
Yes, sir. I agree with that 100%. I just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge a lot of the brothers and sisters that have joined us in the chat. We're concentrating on the matches and the reviews of the matches, so forgive us with the fact that we haven't made the acknowledgments, but I want to take a moment to acknowledge Denise Wards, Gil Coles, Brooklyn Child Boxing, Ancestral Rage, Iceberg Nerd, Make Conversation. We appreciate you being a part of this evening's show. Things can be in the sport, which is a balance. So we're bringing this to you this evening because we're coming to the end of the year. There was a lot that transpired, and just trying to get you all to remember the journey that brought us to this point. So another fight, Reggie, that I wanted to touch on, that I had as a part of my little list, is another bout that took place with some little guys. Again, how about Burchelt versus Vargas? You know, this was a fight that saw Miguel kind of step out and separate himself from some of the others in the division. I actually think that he's a fighter that we should give a little more credit to, because he's very capable, and he appears to be a guy who relishes being a champion. Now that he's the champ, you know, Miguel Burchelt is his latest effort. He really put something on display that kind of wasn't there, you know, before he won the title. And I'm anxious to see what we're going to get out of him going into 2020. This fight with Vargas, what was interesting is that Vargas was a little bit faded, but it was the kind of fight that you could have an appreciation for, but also you could see what doesn't happen as much in the sport, a passing of the baton, you know, because Vargas was a decent champion. He was a bit vulnerable, but he wasn't afraid to take on quality opposition as Burchelt is. So I look forward to seeing this guy. He had the baton passed. What do you think about Burchelt? And before you answer, let me just acknowledge Ronald Finkley in the chat. He says he sent a PayPal donation. I appreciate that. Ronald Finkley, appreciate you and the donation, bro. Thank you, and welcome to the channel, man. Go ahead, Reggie.
Miguel Vargas, but Miguel Burchelt is a deal. And the only thing holding him back is him not being focused like too many of these rising fighters. But I think this dude, hopefully he stays focused, but there's so much potential with him going down as being in the lines of other Mexican greats. And hopefully he can uphold that standard of what it takes to be in that class of other great Mexican fighters. So I just want to see where his career goes. But I like Miguel Burchelt. I like his style of fighting. Good fighter who works off that jab. I like when I see that Burchelt. And he mixes things up. He doesn't overcommit things unless he has an opponent. He knows he can just dog and get up out of there. But that fight that I saw him in was the Sosa one. I missed the Vargas fight, but I like Burchelt. He's definitely a dog.
Yeah, I think that some people are sleeping on him, and you know, fighters who will step up to the plate, we're not seeing so much of that these days But when they do, you kind of got to pay that respect to them because of what they do and they put it on the line. And that little bit of vulnerability that they show in doing that, because sometimes, you know, we're accustomed to guys running away from competition and things like that. But, you know, even the vulnerabilities that they display, the mere fact that they'll get out there and try to compete with whoever it is. You know, Vargas was a little bit like that, but I think that Burchelt is a younger, fresher, and possibly better fighter. You know what I mean? So it's like to have that's very welcoming in the sport. And I like to give the respect to those guys who do that. You know what I mean? And it's not to put anybody else down. It's just actually an actual acknowledgement to something that other people should take stock and solace in, and not just in the lower weights, but across the sport, because we do have fighters in other weight classes who are doing just that. But we should celebrate that and talk about it and acknowledge it, as opposed to just kind of sometimes talking about the negative aspects of what's transpiring in the sport. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to acknowledge Mr. Burchelt there, and I look forward to him in the coming year to see what he has to offer. So, and now we could come to one of the other matches that took place earlier in the year that we had a chance to see, what I like to call my heavyweight champion, our heavyweight champion, Deontay Wilder, when he took on Dominique Breazeale. Now, there was a huge backdrop that took place behind the scenes regarding the two camps. And there was a lot of jawing, mostly from the Breazeale side of things. And it also led into the promotion of the fight. Some things being said at the press conference that were unsavory, unprofessional. And I thought that Mr. Breazeale took some cheap shots at the champ that really showed that he's not necessarily down. You understand? So, and I have to say, I was elated that the fight ended the way it did because of those reasons. And for anyone else that feels like him and talks like him and behaves like him, I hope they can get that equally, regardless of what weight class they may be at. That's my own personal thought and feeling. Nobody has to share that. I just wanted to put it out there because it felt so damn good to see him and his titties jingling on the canvas out there after he was very disrespectful to the champ, who was giving him an opportunity to feed his family when he didn't have to, for being so disrespectful and getting his ass whooped twice. But anyway, I'll stop right there. What are your thoughts on this particular fight and promotion, Reggie?
Man, I love the and matter of fact, listening to speaking on it, and the thing that stood out that bugged me when it came out was the Urban Dictionary comment. That just shows me what kind of sellout clown this dude is. And for him to make that statement because he's pandering to one particular segment of American society to go against his own brother. So I was like, it's time for Wilder to go in here and knock this fool head off. And for Breazeale to hold up so much pent up animosity towards Wilder, pent up aggression, and he really got in shape because he thought he was going to go in here and knock Wilder out because he thought less of Wilder. He underestimated Wilder. He brought into what other haters in world society who goes against it and won't give credit when credit is due. Dominic thought he can be the hero for that side of buffoonish hatery in the world, and he got his damn jaw cracked. Matter of fact, he got everything about him has deflated. Him wanting to step out. It's hard for Dominic Breazeale public from what happened. It's hard for him to even. I don't even think he has social media no more. So he talked all that shit, and he matter of fact, he got internet famous. And that's the wrong place to get famous for when you're in boxing. And that's being on one of the memes. But he got stretched out, man. It was a beautiful punch. The underestimation of Wilder's power doesn't exist in this guy's head anymore. And I wonder what happened when he sees Wilder just crossing paths on some friendly stuff. Because the one honorable thing about Wilder is once things are settled in the ring, they're hashed up and they're beyond him. And he can, you know, he can be cordial with anybody. And I want to see how Dominic presents himself when he comes in front of Wilder. Is he showing signs of fear? Because it's going to be no animosity or anything, but just to see how much fear. And for him to talk all that stuff for, what, about 2 years, I think this mess went on, and you didn't put up any account for yourself. And this is the best shape you've been in. And matter of fact, what that knockout did is it put real fear in the heart of these other heavyweights, except Luis Ortiz. But it put fear in the heart of Tyson Fury. And it put fear in the heart of AJ, most definitely. I think it played a part in why AJ couldn't function mentally going in there with Ruiz. But yeah, I love what Wilder did.
Yes, indeed, man. That's why I said I loved it. You know, the end result couldn't have been better. Maybe if his head came off his body, that could have made it a little bit better. You know, and his family was right there too in the audience. Maybe they could have caught it, you know, if it flew out the ring or something. That would have made it a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I wanted to acknowledge a few more people that have joined us. We got Derek McGee out there. Lars D, I see you. The Perfection is out there, and John Lejeune is out there. And we're really rolling through this, man. This is some great stuff. I love it. The recap of the year and the big cap on Brazil. I love that, man. He's forever a meme, joining the likes of Fury, what's his name, Stavern, you know what I'm saying? Guys that just deserve every bit of what Deontay leaves in the wake of a championship bout when they face him. So I love it, man. I can't say enough about it, but we'll move forward. Because you segued it perfectly, because just a couple of weeks later, you know, we had an opportunity to see Britain's finest, I guess they would call him back then. I don't know about currently, but we got a chance to see AJ just a couple of weeks after Wilder did his thing. He came out there taking on Andy Ruiz Jr. And what was really interesting was that, you know, it was supposed to be Jarrell Big Dummy Miller, and who blew his opportunity of a payday of a lifetime when he tested positive for several, you know, banned substances while dropping the bomb that AJ was taking, you know, something and doctor prescribed this and that or whatever, but it wasn't legal substances, and he turned out to fail not one, not two, but like 3, possibly 4 or more, you know, banned substances in his testing. Now, that right there was outrageous, but what was really interesting that we did miss was the press conference that they shared on the dais where Big Baby was really, he was good. He was kind of in that Harrison mode, you know, where he was doing a good job of promoting the fight and people were starting to develop interest in it. But once he popped dirty, that was the end of that. So they had to seek out another opponent for the fight. Now, names that were dropped that were never intended, guys like Luis Ortiz, you know, and a possible step up with Wilder and this and that. But of course, you know that wasn't going to be the case. So they settled on Andy Ruiz Jr., who was recently kicked out of the top rank promotional company because they didn't think they can do much with him or whatever. And here he is taking on an opportunity. I think he had maybe a 5-week camp that he was kind of in and out of, and he had just taken on the big Russian guy that he stopped, who actually, strangely enough, represented a lot of the same physical dimensions that AJ did. So I knew, watching the fight going in, this could be kind of interesting, because usually when a last minute opponent substitute steps in, that's not the guy that the fighter was, or the champ was originally planning to fight. So now it's looking like, oh, what can happen here? And boy, were we in for a surprise. So tell me, what were your recollections of this little piece, Reggie? What
Man, everything that went in the building. This is supposed to be Big Dummy Miller's fight. He blew it up in smoke, wrecking financial opportunities for his family. Now, Eddie Hearn, because it happened so quick before, right as the fight was about to get ready to start. So they had to rush in here. And I think what happened is Eddie was sitting at home and he's watching his PBC card, and he stumbled upon Andy Ruiz, and him looking at this chubby guy and seeing that he came off a defeat of this big, he fought a big giant in Dimitri Cole, whatever the dude who Ruiz fought that fight before Joshua. Yeah, so I think Eddie was looking at him run game as far as Andy being viable, but him thinking Andy is just a quick add-in who they just gonna blow right through him and shit. Running, he beat up a giant guy this deal park, but they thought this was all a huge cherry pick game that they're gonna run, not really studying this dude, getting the real scouting report on who Andy Ruiz was, and they came in here and got mixed up, and also not knowing that as the date wound closer, that his fighter would have a mental breakdown leading into the fight. So everything, this karma thing just hit that whole side of Matchroom. It's karma eating their ass up from all the games they done played, and the boxing gods put a curse out on this fool. Now he goes into this thing and with this underestimation. The first 3 rounds, AJ fought a good fight. He maintained that distance. He boxed, but the moment he stepped on the inside against this dude, Ruiz, it was over with. Because when he dropped Ruiz, and he really didn't sit down on it, he sat down on it, but it didn't fully rock Ruiz. He was able to recover from the punch by the time he got up. Now, what AJ did wrong is he thought he had a wounded target out there, not knowing this guy was clear as day. It was almost as if the knockout never happened. AJ moved right in the range this guy needed him to be in with those quick hands. And once he clocked AJ couldn't get his bearings back. He was weak to the chin, brain rattled, never recovered, and that was all she wrote. Man, it was the most embarrassing way for a champion that received the hype, overhyping, all trying to boost this guy up while knocking the other champion that was out there. It was a humbling thing that needed to be done in the sport, because it brought him right off that high horse, and now he's leveled out here on the ground. So I loved it, man. I love what Andy Ruiz did in that first fight. Now, speaking on that rematch, the disdain I have for AJ is the same. I loved it. This was probably one of the greatest upsets and the most necessary result to happen in the sport of boxing. I think it was necessary for AJ to suffer a defeat at the hands of Andy Ruiz, because it ends all the BS that was going on with media protection, the protection of AJ fans. It was needed. So it was a necessary defeat, and the boxing gods brought about this.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing, man, because you always like to see hype trains come to a crash or a derailment. You know what I mean? It's like, that's one of the things you look for. In a scary movie, you expect to get scared, shocked into, what's taking place, what's transpiring. So in this hype train, I was just waiting when the derailment was going to come. You know what I mean? I remember when he knocked out Charles Martin and won that first belt, I said, well, he's now a titleist, but he's still a prospect with a title. That's what I considered him. even throughout the defenses that he had, I still considered him as such. And because they were taking the mapped route that they were taking, I was like, man, they're going to milk this thing as much as possible. And even to the point that there are younger fighters who are on the come up, right? And I said to myself prior to this loss, I said, this is going to go on till these younger guys catch up. And next thing you know, he's going to have to fight one of them because they're going to be number one contenders for the belts that he has. Because his people that handle him and everything, they had absolutely no intention of putting him in there with Deontay Wilder. I've already resigned to that fact a couple of years ago. But when this happened, it was like getting shot with the super soldier serum for the sport of boxing in the heavyweight division in particular, because now you could see on the horizon that there was opportunity for something else to take place. You got a new champ, a guy who could face Wilder possibly on the horizon. And the fact that a unification and an undisputed is now really on the table and everything. And I remember all of the excuses that they came up with, as to why this took place. And somewhere in those excuses, there was a little bit of truth that got let out when he said something about he wished it was Wilder. Now, when he said that, I'm like, did he wish it was Wilder knocking him out? Or did he wish that debut was against Wilder because that was his U.S. debut, and stuff like that? That was never really made clear, but it was open for interpretation. The way that played out, man, it was like, when somebody, I remember doing a post-fight show and talking about it and everything, because going into the fight, I had said I wasn't going to watch it, and I wasn't going to, tune in. I had did a stream, like a Friday night show like this, saying, man, I have no interest in this crap or whatever. And Hyphy and I, who were doing that show in particular, we were like, whatever. And I had said, the only way that I'd do some commenting on this or whatever, if there was an upset. And it happened, okay? So the first thing I remember, as clear as it was yesterday, was when I went live with the post-fight and Hyphy got on there with me. We were just laughing for the first 5 or 10 minutes, just straight laughter, because we both were thinking the same thing. We were like, we weren't going to talk about this. We weren't going to give it any acknowledgement or anything, because the guy had been running from Wilder so much. With all those bogus negotiations and everything, we just felt like, man, this is BS. You know what I mean? So when Andy Ruiz shook up the world, boy, we had a good time. We were laughing and talking. If anybody didn't see my post-fight stream on that, please go back and watch it, because it's hilarious. The things we were saying, how we were enjoying ourselves. And it was like, it was something awe-inspiring, because we just thought that he was just gonna, go in there and defeat Andy possibly or whatever. But at the same time, it was not gonna be any good news unless he lost. And when he lost, boy, we dove right in, and we had a great night that night on that stream. I think that was probably one of the best streams we ever had fun on, talking about what had transpired in the evening. So that's one of my recollections. I don't know, Reggie, if you ever got a chance to catch that post-fight stream that I did on that.
Yeah, I did. I catch it.
It was great, man. It was a great time. And it was, again, like I said, it was a shot in the arm for the entire sport, but the heavyweight division in particular, and I hope that we get more of that kind of fare in 2020, because these are the kind of things that can really breathe life into the sport, and I don't know, it's just one of those things I like to talk about and acknowledge. Even right now, I'm still having joy. Anthony Bolton, I see you out there. Beaudrew Thibodeau Boxing is out there as well. Laws D is out there laughing because we're talking about AJ in the UK and stuff like that. But Reggie, we have some fights that you have selected to talk about, but I'm gonna mention one more off of my list that ended up being a super fight for the summer, and that was the fight that took place between Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman. Why don't you set that one up for us?
Man, I love. I give him his credit for. I always give people. But I'm not a fan of Manny Pacquiao's. But going into this one, I was a fan of Keith Thurman, and this is what happens when you don't keep things true and honorable. I can't rock with you, and that's what happened with Keith Thurman. Man, I ended up going against him in this fight. And not going against him, not thinking Pacquiao had a chance based on his age. But the thing I must remember is that Pacquiao is a dude who's dedicated to this damn sport. That dude gets into great physical condition. Even when he shows his videos, he's open with his workouts. He brings people in the public to his workouts, and they fall out because this dude works his ass off. So I had to keep that in mind going into this one. And it showed inside that ring of where he went in there and he schooled Keith Thurman ass early in this fight. The speed, the jittery type movements was a little bit too much for Keith Thurman, especially with Keith with that long layoff, with the undocumented injuries. He got them UFO injuries. But he went in there and he got and staying away from this game, all in the effort of avoiding fighting the Earl Spence. And it cost him. It cost him his titles. Great embarrassment to the sport. You don't even see him around anymore. And I see Tony Harrison was in this camp, and he's back looking puffy again. So ain't no telling what's... Matter of fact, I think he sustained another damn injury for the fight. So he's on this another long layoff again. But I was glad Pacquiao came and finally took those belts away. Now, Pacquiao ain't doing the most with those belts, but he's a legend. So he ain't got much time left. He's just trying to secure his money. So I don't hold nothing against him. And he may give somebody an opportunity to pass the torch to. So I got nothing on to be against Pacquiao. I respect and much honor and everything to Pacquiao, especially for doing this.
Yeah, man. Listen. That UFO injuries comment, man, I'm trying my best not to die laughing on this stream. That's some hilarious stuff right there, because that's definitely what it is with this guy, Thurman. Unidentified freaking injuries, in boxing. It's like the guy, I don't know. But anyway, he accepted this opportunity to fight Pacquiao, where I could understand that his position, where he was thinking, oh man, this guy is a guy who commands a good salary in the sport. Since Floyd has stepped away from the sport, this is the next best thing. So it's like he was definitely going to make his greatest payday. But what a gross miscalculation of the man, simply because of his physical stature and his age. But one thing he didn't take into account was this, and I was saying this leading into this fight in a lot of my content covering the sport and going up to this fight, approaching it. I was saying that because of Thurman's approach to how he was laying off and wasn't looking to fight the other quality champions and contenders out there, including Earl, who had not yet won a belt earlier. Keith found ways to avoid people. I think he got a little content. He liked the lofty status of being called a champion or whatever, but he wasn't... I think he had rested on his laurels already. And that led to lack of insight as to who he was fighting, because I had remarked in my particular take on the fight between the two Manny Pacquiao had faced, defeated, and lost to better fighters than Keith Thurman and better fighters than Keith Thurman has faced. So that was how I was able to make my call on the fight. If you've never really been there, we don't know what will happen if you were invited there, or if you suddenly found yourself there, you know. And he found himself in a place of unfamiliarity as early as the first round when he was on the canvas. How do you get knocked down by Manny Pacquiao in the first round? You're younger, supposedly faster, supposedly stronger. You know, you have so many things that are in your favor, except for intestinal fortitude, boxing ring IQ, and your actual approach to who it is that you're fighting. Lack of focus. When he found himself on the canvas as early as the first round, I was just cracking up laughing. Just cracking up laughing. Because I was like, this is what it is. You know what I mean? This is where you get an opportunity to show your wares, but you show your ass instead. You know, and that's something, you know, he really hasn't fought since. He hasn't done anything to try to snap back or whatever. That's going to ride with him the rest of his career, because that's a very defining thing about him. And let this be a lesson to any fighter out there that may face Keith Thurman in the future, whether you are a champion or a contender, or even a man who is a journeyman, that he may look to pick you because he wants to try to get back in the ring and be active again. That man is not who he once was. He is only a shell of himself, and now it's time for a fighter to close the door, close the casket on Keith Thurman, because he was supposed to beat Manny Pacquiao. He was, but he couldn't. And that's only because of himself, and he only has himself to blame. And anyone who has seen him recently, you can look at him and tell boxing is not high on his priority list right now. Huh? When he was on that PBC behind the scene boxing or whatever, dude, the shirt that he was wearing, the buttons was like expanding like this. You know, it's like how your shirt gets stretched, you know, when it's too small for you. That's Keith Thurman. He needs to just go back, play his flute. I know Gil Coles won't like this, but play his flute, get his hair done, and focus on that Kama Sutra. That's all he know right now. He might as well give up boxing. That's all I got to say about that. Sorry, Gil Coles. He says in the chat, why are you bringing up old stuff? I'm sorry, but that's what it is, what it is. You know what I'm saying? So, hey. But let's go ahead, Reggie. Let's go forward with some of the fare that you wanted to drop. Let me know what's first up on that list.
All right, man, I got a few of them.
Yeah, but the first one, just, you know, try to take them in.
All right. All right, yes, indeed. So the first one I got is box. I got Dora Coast versus Andrew Tabiti. And in that one, man, and did you see that one?
I didn't see that one because I didn't have the zone at the time when it was a live match. And it's one of the ones I haven't had a chance to revisit yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man. And this one, man, where they fighting at cruiserweight, I believe, against Border Coast, who was known as a devastating puncher. And me, I was rocking with Andrew Tabiti, man, going into this one. I thought his speed, along with his power, would set up something. But he went in this one showing way too much respect to who his opponent was known for being, and that was a heavy puncher and a knockout artist. So before Dorticos can ever land a punch, Tabiti ran around the ring the whole damn fight. All you see, he's trying to get it was almost like he was in a 100-meter race. He dodged around that ring, circling around. He was hopping around that ring. But once this dude landed that one punch on, Tabiti went to went to sleep. It was almost like he was in cardiac arrest. Devastating this punch was. It was hard to see Taviti go down like that. It was bad. I hate to see him go out like that. As a Roy Jones knockout. But from this one, I want to see where he regroups. I haven't seen him except he was brought into for his speed, but now he has to go into these next fights not being afraid or respecting what these other his own plan, work off his speed because he has great boxing, great abilities, but him going in that fighting scared, it cost him and it embarrassed the hell out of him. But yeah, that's all I got for that one.
Yeah, I have to revisit that now that I can go back and look at the library. I'm going to have to check that one out. But, you know, I didn't get a chance to see it yet. You know, what's interesting also is when some of these fights like that, like when you like the sport of boxing like we do, even though the whole DAZN app and all of that, it's like, you know, people can say what they want or whatever, but when you can see these fights for yourself, you can make assessments on, you know, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and things like that. And every once in a while, a card will have something special on it, even if it's not the main event. So I have an appreciation for what you're sharing that I haven't seen, and I will take a chance to go back and look at some of these matches. What's the next one you got on the horizon for us?
All right, the next one I got, man, was an unknown coming into the spotlight, and many of the brothers in the LD, and he's out of Los Angeles. This was Jamal Charlo versus Brandon Adams. What you thought of that one?
That's a fight that I had made a comment about in my post fight, which I actually revisited as we were putting things together for tonight's show. I felt like Jamal in that particular fight did not do the things that he could have done to make the fight easier for himself. I thought that he won the fight, but I thought that Brandon Adams really showed some moxie in there, and he showed great survival skills, especially and particularly being much smaller in stature. He looked like he could be a 154-pounder, really, you know, but he was in there with the strongest, what I consider the strongest middleweight, you know, at the time. And he gave a very good effort. If he were a little more offensive-minded, or maybe even had a little bit more pop on his punches, it could have turned into a very interesting fight, because he was able to make contact with Jamal, and he was also able to frustrate Jamal. I know they said after the fight that he had hurt his hand. I don't know if that was just kind of an excuse because he didn't get the desired result. He wanted a knockout, but he didn't do the things he could have done to set up a knockout. He let Adams survive in close with him, close quarters, and he didn't use his physicality, which I thought he could have used a great deal more, and he didn't use that jab enough. You know, keep that guy on the outside, catch him coming in, bringing and digging the shots around the side and up and under. You know, there were some things he could have done in that regard, and I thought that was also the kind of fight that he should have had, and I've talked about this on many panels, my shows, and in some of the videos about fighters fighting certain types of fights before they become a champion. I think this was one of those. That was the kind of opponent he should have faced before becoming a world champion. Because there are fighters out there that you're just not going to look good against. There are fighters out there that are going to give you what you don't want, and that is they're going to give you problems. You know what I mean? And Adams is that guy. It would have been interesting if he had got the Triple G fight, because, you know, I was arguing the fact that my displeasure and the fact that Jamal and Triple G were arguing about who was going to get Brandon Adams instead of fighting each other. And I thought that was ridiculous at the time. They were arguing over who was going to get this opponent next instead of just fighting each other. So Adams got the call with Charlo, and it was a good outing for Charlo, but it was a rugged affair. I mean, what do you think about what I've had to say about that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with. But the reason for me, because just going into what we know where opportunities be, the percentage of people who make it to positions of even fighting for a champion, the politics and the way that boxing can do particular fighters to where you almost get in the position where you're ready to. Brandon Adams was at the point of his career of fighting until he got a call off the damn TV show, The Contender. And just to think that this show will put this guy in this position to where he walking out the door of the sport, and this show opens an opportunity as it would for any can compete in this show, and he becomes the guy who makes it to the finale and ultimately beats the son of a legend. Again, stepping into this this opportunity against a middleweight other champions are avoiding. The Canelos avoiding Jamal Charlo. Triple G avoiding Jamal Charlo. Boo Andrade avoiding Jamal Charlo. Now a guy off shows up into this ring in this guy's hometown and makes a great account for himself, and a great account to where he is being recognized by many, and now he's getting many interviews that a lot of us are paying attention to, want to hear the story. And I honor because he's from where I'm from. I think he's from Watts, which ain't far from where I'm from, but he represents the area. So I everybody's caught up in either they want to be a Blood or a Crip out there, but I like his story. I like the opportunity he got, and he didn't go in there to lay down for. He went in there to be competitive against Charlo. He's a much smaller guy, but he showed his heart. He showed his will, and he tested Charlo at moments in this fight to a point where many people were starting to add criticisms to Charlo or why he didn't look like that. But Charlo is just going there against a guy who wasn't there to fold. You're going to have to battle out when a guy ain't there to lay down for you, and especially when the guy has a strong beard on him. It was good, and especially this dude that's supposed to be a 100-pounder. Think he's going to move down and weight and fight down there, but a great affair that night. Everything that happened, everything that transpired, the stories that build up into these fights is the thing that attracts me. That's why I like that we get so much information for the game right now. Is there's stories that lead into the setting up of these fights, and that's what I like about that one. So that's why I chose this as well.
Yeah, like I said, my post-fight show, I really talked about, the things that Maul didn't show that he should have shown at that level and at that particular point of facing that opponent. And Adams gave a good account of himself. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him right back in against someone next year, in the coming year, for a title shot. It'll probably be at 154, but man, it's like fighters who are out there shouldn't sleep on the guy because he is capable, and he just happened to run across the young man who I thought was the cream of the division as far as, and he is a young lion. Maul is not a guy that if you don't have a great punch and boxing ability, in fighting and things like that, you may be in for a long night against him. So Adams doesn't have anything to hang his head on. I think he committed, he represented himself very well. And I look forward to seeing him again. E. Woodson is out there in the chat. What's going on with you, E. Woodson? Glad to see you there. And good to see Gil Coles is laughing and not taking too much trauma from behind what was said about Keith Thurman. So I'm glad to see Gil is laughing out there. So what else do you have for us, Hyphy? What's next on I'm sorry, Reggie. What else do you have?
All right, so my next fight happens to be against the guy who just became a newly crowned lightweight, super lightweight, Teofimo Lopez, and where he went in his against the tall Japanese fighter, Nagatani Masayushi or some shit like that. But that's my next fight. Now I enjoy the hell where Teofimo goes against his first test where he had to show other things and him not going here because he's just walking through other opponents. He finally stepped in front of an who had a strong chin, so your power wasn't due, and you had a guy with where you had physical advantages, height, and possibly matching Teofimo in speed. But this guy, and also with his will, because this guy really didn't use his from the, and Teofimo wasn't quite used to a fighter fighting him like that, and it caused a lot of frustration and Teofimo a lot of excuse making in that fight. But it was great to see this young fighter tested. In this fight, he was able to pull off the victory, and he stood in there and he fought. He still tried things, but it also woke him up because he went through a level of depression. He went through a level of, but good thing it happened at this age. And he walked away still remaining undefeated. I think he'll learn a lot from this one, and a lot that he can learn is not just relying on his knockouts. Now he comes into his next fight and he scores this early knockout, so I don't know really what he's learned, but it sets him up to where he's going to go against a real scholar when it comes to abilities in this fight thing when he fights long. This one right here, I'll enjoy this fight because it set up things for Teofimo, and it drew in the question of really how good is Teofimo, but to see him test and see how he campaigned through it, I enjoy the hell out of this fight. And I enjoy what that Japanese fighter did. This is why I respect the Brandon Adams, this Nagatani, the J-Rocks, because when people count them out or look at them as being run over type opponents and they stay in there and they don't come in here to lay down, I like that. Even the same dude with Mean Machine who fought Crawford. Everybody thought he'd be a walkthrough. He didn't come in there and lay down. What's they had to work for. I like underdog fighters who do that. So that's why I picked this fight.
Yeah, I thought it was a very good fight for Teofimo, and I didn't like his post-fight reaction to what transpired. I mean, he did get the victory, but I felt I had the fight going for the Japanese opponent, Nakatani, and that's just my personal way that I scored the fight. But I knew who was the name fighter, who was the house fighter, and if Nakatani couldn't knock him out, it was just going to be that type of evening for him. And he didn't get any knockdowns, so that he didn't do himself any favors. But what he did do was he showed Teofimo that everybody is not going to fall down just because you hit them, and there are going to be guys who can take you to task, and not only take you to task, take you the distance. A good fight for him. A lot like the Jamal Adams fight, because here you had, where Teofimo was pretty much walking through guys like a hot knife in butter. And so he has some resistance here, and he had to find ways to get his shots off because the opponent was so much taller and had so much of a reach and could take his punch, and also take a little bit back in return. Now, it's interesting that he comes right into a title shot after this, and, he's now champion. But, again, the type of fight that I like to say, these young prospects that you have on a path toward a title shot, they need to fight these type of opponents, because it's going to be a telltale sign of what they're able to contend with, as well as what's going to, cause them difficulty. And in this particular fight, I thought that Nakatani was doing some interesting things with Teofimo as far as making him back up, because Teofimo was used to walking toward guys and blasting them out. Well, Nakatani was like making him move around, box, and do some things that he may not have been as comfortable doing, and at the same time putting some leather on his ass. So, I like to see more of that in his future. but at this time it looks like he's avoided that, and now he's a champion. But maybe Nakatani may be out there for a title shot in the future or something if he can continue to fight at the level that he showed up that night. You know, sometimes these guys will show their best in a fight like that, and then they kind of fall off. So it remains to be seen what would be next for someone like Nakatani. And Teofimo is already moving on and possibly maybe soon facing Lomachenko in his future. So yeah, what do you have next, brother?
All right, for my next fight, I got Maurice Hooker versus Jose Ramirez, and that was unification by the hell out of that war. And in this one, man, you just seen Jose Ramirez really show a separation going into the Hooker in this fight, because I thought Hooker had a in his style of fighting, man. I thought he just left himself open way too much. He doesn't utilize that reach. His thing with me is with that long reach, he had nothing that garnered the respect of opponents, man. I just thought his jab was way too weak, and the other tools that he utilized, he doesn't fight to, his highest of benefit. And I think that's why he recently Bomac to see if he can fix some of those deficiencies. But he went in there against a warrior in Ramirez, who just stuck to his game and just worked the hell out of Maurice Hooker, man. It was beautiful, a beautiful rugged style boxing that Jose Ramirez used in going into defeating Hooker and capturing that title. But I enjoyed the hell out of it, and also in his conclusion, because it was real entertaining. And Maurice Hooker showed that he had dog in him. He tried to fight back, but Ramirez is just way too much as he started to separate from Hooker. And it was nothing Hooker can do because he's just up in there against a better man. But that was my next fight right there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you put that on your list, because I just watched that fight last week. Because like I said, when it happened live, I didn't have DAZN and access to it. So I did watch it last week. I marveled at how Ramirez went about his work. But the one thing that you said about Hooker being wide open, and my goodness, he needs to sharpen that up, because it was like Ramirez was like a kid in the candy store. When he saw the accessibility that Hooker was providing him, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. Now, I don't know how fast a learner that Hooker is, but even in his comeback fight that he just had recently, he's still looking the same, and his technique is poor. I remember in another chat where we were talking about him and what's on the horizon for him, I was saying that he's going to get knocked out. And I think Kurt Anderson was on there with us, and he agreed 100%. As soon as he fights someone who is high caliber, he's going, because the things that he should work on, and in that division where he's going to be, the welterweights, he's not technically sound enough to survive. You know what I mean? So it's something that we have to, look forward to, as far as whoever he's in there with. It's going to be exciting when he goes, but I see that on his horizon. As far as this fight, though, Ramirez took advantage of all of the openings and the availabilities that Maurice Hooker allowed. As far as Ramirez, what do you think of what do you think is on the horizon for him in 2020? Because I think that's going to be interesting as well.
Oh, definitely Josh Taylor is definitely on the horizon for him, and as well as possibly get himself back in the win column. So I think that's where is trying to go about defeating those two right there. Names there, but Josh Taylor, especially him being one of the title holders, I think those two are the only ones that definitely waiting to see them clash against each other, and because I can't take nothing away from Josh Taylor as well. He's a dynamic ass dude right there. He can fight you from the inside, box you, real dynamic. But that's the fight I definitely want to see going in.
Yeah, I think that Josh Taylor, he represents, and we'll be talking about him soon too, I guess. But he represents what has been missing from the sport for almost, I want to say, about 20 years. You know, when we had Steve Collins at the middleweight division, Stevie Collins was a good fighter. He didn't travel across the pond to fight some of the U.S. fighters, but he was a little bit better than some of those other guys that were over there, like the Chris Eubanks and Nigel Benz. He was a tougher fighter and somewhat a better fighter than those guys, but he didn't make it over here. Now, Josh Taylor, I could kind of see a lot of what I saw in Stevie Collins. That's he's got ability, some skills, and he's got some hot blood in him. You know what I mean? And there are fighters out there, they may sleep on him and think, oh, this because this is, you know, a white dude, I'm gonna go in there and whoop him or something. No, you're gonna have to bring your lunchbox when you fight Josh Taylor, and it will be exciting to see what happens in 2020 with this guy. So give us your next one, brother. What you got?
All right, and my next one is a heavyweight, New York, and a California-raised Mexican heavyweight went to battle. I think this is one of the fights I was doing. Calling this fight, it was Adam Kornacki versus Chris Arreola. These dudes got off at the ding of the bell, man. As soon as that bell, they went right at each other, and they let them hands go, man. See two big ass heavyweights with about 260 or something, throw that many punches, tagging each other with those. I think they were averaging something like 100 round, and they end up setting the heavyweight record for most punches thrown in. I think landed because they wasn't missing heads, being that they don't move them much. But they was going at it, man. I was amped up watching this because I thought somebody was gonna get knocked out, and it was amazing that nobody was knocked out in this fight. And I kind of think I can recall what I scored it. I think I need to start saying my damn score. Or filing them away. I think I had Chris Arreola winning this. I thought Chris Arreola won it, but a great effort in this fight. But man, these guys went to war. It's just rock'em sock'em style fighting, and I was amped up just watching and trying to do that play-by-play on this one. But this is definitely my next. That was my other pick right there. Chris Arreola, Adam Kornacki.
Yeah, what's interesting also about this is that, you know, going into the fight, Arreola had already announced, you know, like if he loses this fight, he was going to retire. Now, the funny thing about retirement speeches before a fight, they could go a couple of ways. Usually a guy is ready to check out on his way out, or it could end up like this fight where a guy ends up putting on a performance that you want to see him again. And it's like, that's exactly what happened here. These two guys were the personification of, you know, fighting, not boxing, fighting. They fought for, what was it, a 10-round fight? Man, these two dudes, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, 2019. And they were just powerful enough to shake one another or whatever, but not powerful enough to finish one another. It was like they were fighting a mirror image of one another. You know what I mean? And Arreola, I was pulling for him because he had said he was going to retire as I was watching the match. I was like, these guys are really going at it. And the funny aspect of him not using the jab enough, because it was like, he threw the jab away like, no, I got to fight this dude. You know what I mean? So if he had used the jab, he probably wins on points. You know what I mean? But, and Kornacki was too dumb to get out of the way of shots. He was there for the receipt. He was there for the return. He was there for the bagging of the groceries. He was just present. You know what I mean? And Areola, I think if he hadn't had a couple of the awards that he did have earlier in his career, he possibly could have just bested Kalinaki with a stoppage or something. But that's not to diminish the efforts by both guys. It was a very entertaining fight. For anyone out there in the chat, anyone that's out there listening, that if you didn't have a chance to watch this fight, it's definitely what you like to see when you watch a boxing match. Rock'em sock'em robots. I mean, would you agree with that, Reggie?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it was quite an effort by both gentlemen, and you know, a rematch would do well, you know, because of what they brought. You know, like if they could like bring them back on the Deontay Wilder undercard or something that's coming up, it's like I'll watch it. You know what I mean? It's like that's what you pay to see, man. It's just that kind of a thing with the sport. So that's what I have to offer on that one.
All right, my other fight is once again bringing Juan Estrada back in there, and this is where and in this one, man, this is an entertaining fight. Just being on Dante's Boxing Nation shows, and Dwayne Beeman used to come on, and will always, as he was going through his career, you know, he started talking down on all the fighters in the weight class he had and how he'll walk through them and do this and that because he came in as a. But once he had a fight over in Mexico, and once he had this fight, the power wasn't, or him being physically, from physical appearances, looking as a very, didn't translate to what the opponents were feeling. So he started to have a little bit of struggle as he moved up in competition. These opponents were able to take his power and putting him into a lot of dog fights. So he ended up getting this opportunity against, after, you know, a few losses, his opportunity champion. And, you know, he shedded a lot of that muscle. He did what he dropped all that, because this dude was toned up, but he dropped a lot of unnecessary. And when he went into this thing, he started to box a little bit. He went in there to the box, had a little bit of success, but it was like every time Estrada tapped him, it buzzed him or it dropped him. And every time Dwayne Beeman would get up, bring the fight right back to Estrada and have his. As the fight went on, Estrada started letting them. And I think this is what played mentally to Beeman. When Estrada laid against the ropes and stretched his arm out to rest, like stretching his arms out like he's just leaning back, resting as Dwayne's trying to let off. And it just showed that this dude was letting Dwayne be. You done effed up. It ain't nothing you can do in this fight. It's gonna be tragic for you. And he turned the heat up on Dwayne and causing the ref to stop it. But Dwayne showed a ton of heart, still trying to battle on in this fight. But Estrada was just a different beast up in that ring, man. It was like one of the fights that had me excited. I was really into this fight, and just also see Dwayne Beeman kind of change up his game plan a little bit. He's against a guy who's really separating himself in his division. Plus he's big. Estrada's kind of big for the well, but that's the fight that I had.
Yeah. I didn't see this particular fight, and again, that was another DAZN fight, right?
Right. Yeah, this is DAZN right here.
So I have to go back and try to catch that one, but I do like Estrada. I do. You know, it remains to be seen where he goes going forward, but I do like him. The fights that are on the horizon for him, and we spoke on some things earlier, but Beeman, it sounds unfortunate. I have to check that out. But hey, man, guys, you know, sometimes they have they have a misconception about what the sport really means. You know, you have to find your niche in the sport. If you do something and you do it well, you have to stick to that. You can't go out there and just try to figure it out as you go and improvise. You have to have something in the toolbox to begin with, and you can add improvisation after you develop your skills. But yeah, I will be checking that one out. Smash that like button, people. It says we got 21 likes. I know we could get them up a little higher. Can we push it up to 30 if it's possible? I know we got a lot of people out there listening. Some people are not participating in the chat, and that's cool. But it'd be nice if you could just give us a thumbs up for the review that we're providing you this evening. Appreciate that. What do you got next on there, Reggie?
All right, my next one, man, is versus Anthony Yard. What are your thoughts on that one?
Man, you know, going into this fight, I had been hearing some things about Yard, and they were talking about his questionable training antics and lack of sparring and the whole overall approach that his coach was trying to bring to the forefront. I don't know if they're doing that for attention, to get scribes to write about him or whatever. But I know I was hearing some things that I didn't necessarily agree with. And as the fight took place, I could see exactly what was being said and why, you know, the fight ended up going the way that it went. Yard was a young talent who had not had a step-up fight yet. And coming into this, Kovalev, the champion, was his step-up. Now, typically, as a coach and trainer, you don't want your guy, his step-up fight to be a title opportunity. You want him to go into a title opportunity having had some seasoning. And this was one of those cases where you could kind of wish for the best, but anticipate the worst. Yard was competitive only because of, you know, how faded Kovalev is. He only by that. But once you saw Buddy McGirt get Kovalev back on the track with the jab, because the man has a monster of a jab, which is why I question, you know, what happened with the Canelo fight or whatever. But anyway, here we're sticking with Yard and Kovalev. He had some good spells during the fight, and even in the middle rounds had rocked Kovalev enough to have him kind of wobbling and reeling. But he wasn't able to finish, and he also had blew his wad at that very moment. So the bell saved Kovalev, who was able to go back to his corner, and Buddy McGirt was able to remind him that he was there to look out for his best interests, and that if he didn't show him something, he would stop the fight. And Kovalev, who was fighting in his hometown, really was pissed off about that. And he went back out there a little more focused. You know, he worked behind the jab, he boxed more, and we got the result that ended up coming about. But Yard, who hit the wall, and the lack of guidance from his corner. You know, he could have found a way to finish the fight, but they didn't have that for him. And that goes back to that angle of coaching that he was receiving, which I don't agree with. But had he been able to receive the instruction that you can rest with your jab as well as be offensive and fight with it, or defensive, he just didn't have that in the toolbox. And he seemed more willing and ready to just shut it down because he had gotten fatigued than to find ways to be in the fight. And as that saying goes, fatigue makes cowards out of men. When he found himself on the canvas, he elected not to get up. And that's unfortunate, because he can look back on that fight, and I'm sure even right now to this day, he could be saying something to himself like, man, I could have got up. man, I could have just, if all I needed to do was catch my breath, all I needed to do was XYZ, you know. But again, that was the learning experience in with the champion, something that you would have liked to see him get before he was in there with the champion. And that's how I saw it. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely saw it that way. Crazy leading into this fight being that Anthony Yarde was just confident, man. He was super confident. I liked it. The fact, him having this as his first huge going over into Kovalev's country. I think Kovalev and others involved, other powers that be, were trying to play some games with Anthony Yarde. But Anthony Yarde, being real confident young cat, it didn't shake him at all. He went into this sure of himself, and he went in there to really try to compete against the Kovalev who fought, not the Kovalev who went in there and took whatever deal he took against Canelo. He came in ready to fight, listening to the plan that Buddy McGirt had put out there, man. And beautiful. Kovalev was whipping the hell out of that jab, moving quite efficient, staying out the range of, and he was surviving for like, 7 or 8. And when he was caught, man, he was caught back. He was really hurting. Anthony Yarde turned, due to what Kovalev did earlier, it started to tax the energy back. And Yarde was kind of a faded fighter. He only had so much left in him after Kovalev hurt. Kovalev withstood it, and Yarde ran out of it. And he survived that round, and that's all it took. Now, going in that closing round, I think he was just faded, man. He blew his wad, and he had nothing left. When that jab stuck him, it wasn't so much of it just being the power from the jab. It was a combination of being hit with a nice hard hitting jab, but also being tired. And that was all she wrote. But it was an entertaining fight.
Yeah.
This young contender was going to become in Russia. So I enjoyed the hell out of that fight.
Yeah. What was also interesting is if he could have pulled that off, let's just say that round he had Kovalev reeling and everything, because if he would have put Kovalev down, the fight would have been over. Because Kovalev, you know, now that he's been knocked out and everything, he's not the same as he was. He's not the crusher anymore. If Yarde had got him, maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't be dealing with this Canelo situation right now. Because Canelo would not have moved up there to fight him. You understand? He wouldn't. Just like he avoided the brothers that's at those other 3 weight classes, he would have avoided him and found something else to do with himself. What do you think about that?
No, I agree 1,000,000,000% on that.
Yeah. So he would have found a way to do something. He would have dug up a champion from the old Ireland or something. He would not have went ahead with that. So what's next? What you got next, bro?
All right, my next one, man, and this, it was so close. So what a great one on my birthday, September 14th, 2019. If y'all don't know what I'm, Tyson Fury versus Otto Wallen. Y'all thought I was going to say Deontay Wilder, but Otto Wallen. So this one that would made this is here you got all this talk of Fury, this controversial draw that he had against Wilder. Other folks stating Wilder may not want to take the. Then you find out Fury is the one who ducks up out of it, thanks to the help of Bob Arum and them suckers over at ESPN. They help this dude out, and they rescue him, give him this stimulus pack to fighting soft-ass opposition.
Also a cocaine pack.
And a cocaine package. And then he goes in there fighting these soft-tier guys. He picked one cat that he underestimated, and he came in against Otto Wallen, who came in here not to play no games with Fury. He came in here to fight and to put his country on the map as well as him. And he opened this cut that leads to where Tyson Fury's career is in real danger, especially going in this Wilding out the gate. This dude came out there to fight. He didn't give a damn. He didn't play into any of that little irky-jerky. This dude closed the ring off well on Fury. He went down to the body, and he snuck those little looping overhand. I think it was the left hands. He was cracking the side of that eye, opening that, which is it has altered Tyson Fury's career going forward. I don't think Tyson Fury just got this possibly going to MMA. He's that damn stupid. But Otto Waller, man, he gained a ton of my respect, being the fact that he brought us to Tyson Fury. He was winning many of those rounds in that fight, and then opening that cut, which almost ended up bringing a stop. Tyson Fury's lucky as hell. Those doctors didn't move in to stop the fight, but Tyson ton of heart to battle through with that kind of cut. He battled through. He bit down and he pressed the action, but he did a whole. That's the only thing. So many of these folks in this commentating game, because I don't listen to the commentating shit, so I don't complain about Fury's holding, but Fury was holding a lot following that, which was the smart thing. But the sorry ass ref, who was reffing? Jack Reese or somebody again? The California refs. I think they fought. Them refs in Cali are full of shit. No, he fought out here in Vegas. Vegas got some iffy refs as well, but he was holding on and keeping Wilding from letting his hands go, and that ultimately towards the later started to wear Otto Wallin down. So that's the only thing that helped Fury survive this fight, is being the fact that this ref allowed him to hold and lay down on the neck of Otto Wallin. He allowed him to bend Otto Wallin over the ropes. Not over, but bend him against the ropes just to wear him down. It was all a tactic for Fury. Wallin kept coming, but he just couldn't get that left hand to spot because he started to fade out, but he still brought the fight. I thought he put up a good fight, and it was almost such a great fight Otto Wallin put up that the score. But I don't know. I forget how those judges. Knowing them, they probably had Tyson Fury winning every round. But Wallin definitely exposed something in Tyson Fury, and to me, exposed the fact that some how they always speak on athletes losing steps. Tyson Fury has lost multiple steps, and it was shown in that fight.
Also, I think of it like this: when somebody fights Tyson Fury, he can't fight, man. He might be able to box a little bit. And I say a little bit because his height and his reach makes boxing easy for him, because he's hard to access. He's hard to get. He's got like an 84, 85, maybe even an 86-inch reach. His arms are very long. And at 6'7", 6'8", his head is hard to reach and everything. But for a guy who wants to get in there and fight him, he has difficulty. Remember the cruiserweight that put him on the canvas. It's like those guys got to be close to you, and they got to, be able to be in on that inside and put their hands on you. And that's where he has trouble. And it was in the second or third round that I was looking at this fight, and that line from Black Dynamite, the movie Black Dynamite, you ever see that, Reggie?
No, I don't think I have. No, the name familiar though.
Let me just tell you, step off track for one quick second about the movie Black Dynamite. There's a cartoon out with it now, but Black Dynamite was a film that Michael J. White produced and starred in. And in the movie that he speaks, and I thought of that line when in that second or third round, that Fury found himself in there with Otto Wallin. I was like, the line is, the cut was opened up from a punch. But then as the fight went on and Otto Wallin was attacking, Fury got angry at some point during the fight and was like gritting his teeth, trying to punch hard with ferocity, but he don't have that type of punching power. So it didn't matter to Otto Wallin, and we in the fight anyway, so you could get mad all you want to. and Otto Walling just kept at him, you know. And it was funny because Otto Walling hit that line, he hit that wall that I talked about Yard hitting, right? When it got late in the fight. But then he miraculously remembered that he wasn't as tired as he thought he was going into that 12th, and he started attacking Fury again. You know, and it was it was one of those things where Fury was like, just get me the hell out of here. You understand? But the fight should have been stopped early because he was bleeding all over the place. I had blood on my TV screen. I was trying to wipe the blood off, but it was from inside because the camera was, basically it was on the camera that was filming the fight. But anyway, enough to be said is that fighting these soft oppositions and soft touches and cherry picks and stuff like that, you could possibly consider that one of the cherry picks gone wrong for the year too, because Tyson Fury thought he was going to go out there, look okay, you know, as far as whatever his standard was, but he didn't expect to be in the fight in no shape, form, or fashion. He didn't expect to be in the fight. And Otto Walling deserved a rematch. You know what I mean? Because he was putting it on Fury's ass. And that's also amazingly one of the reasons why Tyson Fury don't want to fight nobody else in the top 10. He just wants the title shot. But he don't want to fight any of those guys. If Tyson Fury actually had a heavyweight title, which he does not, for all of those people thinking that he's a lineal something, this or that, he ain't no damn champion. Mayan belt or not, he is not a champion. But if he were to become a heavyweight champion, he would do something to still further destroy himself because he didn't want to fight the quality of opposition that's out there in the top 10 or 15 of the division. Men who he refuses to face. He's not going to face a Dominique Brazil. He's not going to fight a Luis Ortiz. He's not going to fight Anthony Joshua or even a Dillian White or any of those guys. He doesn't want any of that type of smoke. He just wants to be able to make paydays so he can continue to make that big score at the crack house. That man he is absolutely, he's a horrible representation within the sport. And the sooner that we get him out the way, the better. You know what I mean? But Otto Walling, salute to that man. He came in there and said, I ain't no damn cherry pick, and I'm going for mine. You know, you understand? And he did. And I loved it. And to see Fury bleeding like that all over the place like a stuck pig, it was wonderful. Only thing we didn't get to see him was on the canvas. You know what I mean? And he is faded. All his antics outside the ring, the drug abuse and everything has taken a lot off of him. The man that Emmanuel Stewart said once could be, you know, at the top of the division, he took a south route and he went to the Carter, huh? And if anybody know what the Carter is, in the movie New Jack City, the Carter was the dope house and main center of the city where they did the drugs, made the drugs, scored the drugs, all of that in one complex. That's where he detoured to. He detoured to the Carter, huh? He said, forget the heavyweight championship. And that's where he is. And that's why we shouldn't give him any respect. Because he don't respect his damn self and he don't respect the sport of boxing. Enough of that bum.
Absolutely. And I can't wait till February 20th so we can finally get him about the sport and start closing the walls on the other heavyweight out there in the UK. No knock on UK fighters because my favorite is a UK representative, but some people say Canada, that's Lennox Lewis. But when you don't represent this sport right and you're not living up to being the baddest, ain't no way I can rock with you, especially as a heavyweight. But my next fight, I got September 28, 2019. This was an epic fight. And it was a unification bout between two welterweights, Sean Porter, Errol Spence. Man, this was a good one. And what made it so good is what was coming out of the, people kind of went in their little splits. You had the Errol Spence sides, you had the Sean Porter sides, and you had the side I was on where I'm a fan of the sport. And I knew what would happen. This wasn't going to be no walkthrough. I have so much respect for Sean. and he displayed it inside that ring. And that's what you gotta love. A fighter doesn't play into the star or the fan of the premier guy in the game. Sean Porter went in here and he gave Earl Spence everything you can handle. A very, very close fight. Sean Porter did some amazing Spence. Those pivots to where he put Earl Spence out of position, go to work on Earl Spence. Earl Spence battling on the inside. Really didn't get to work his jab too much because Sean Porter's some Jedi mind trick way was able to where he wanted to fight, and being that Earl Spence a tough inside fighter, Sean Porter dogged it out with him, and they didn't play this old safe tit for tat type fight. They went in there and battled it out. They fought for those championship titles, and that's what made them real champions. And that's what made Earl Spence, being he was victorious, a real champion, because he went in there and he had to earn in the goddamn bang out war. So I put them as my next top fight of the year, and that's Sean Porter Spence.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And what a highly contested championship fight between two champions. Porter being a multiple-time champion and Earl Spence being a newly crowned and considered future of the division champion. This was a fight that was highly anticipated, but mostly Spence backed. And Sean Porter took things to task and also took it to heart that there were so many people who didn't give him a chance in this fight. Some even thought that Earl was going to dog walk him, and some people just didn't respect Sean's ability because they consider him a football player, and all he wants to do is be a defensive tackle in there or a running back or something like that. But he showed that he had learned a lot since his loss to Kell Brook, and that he had much more than a maul and brawl type approach to the sport of boxing. And he gave as good as he got. It was unfortunate that that slight bit of a knockdown, ever so slight it was, proved to be the difference in the fight, because I believe had the fight gone to the judges' scorecards without that situation, we would have had a very interesting score for this fight. It's a fight that I remarked on my Friday night chop session the night before the fight took place. I questioned over the mic. I asked everyone that was listening, this fight I think is such a good fight, and everybody thinks that Earl is going to win, but Sean is going to be there to fight. How about a rematch? And I said that on air before the fight even took place. You could go back on the archive and check it out. And my words proved to be very true, that both guys delivered. They were the exemplification of highly contested boxing. I remarked after the fight that this was a throwback to like Leonard and Hearns and those guys who did it at welterweight many years ago, because each man showed who they were that night, and that anyone else that's outside of where they are, as far as I'm concerned, they're 1-2 in that division right now until they have a score to settle, in a rematch. But taking nothing from either man, it was the type of fight that boxing fans actually love to see. But for where we are currently in the sport, where so many people look to get away from their favorite fighter fighting someone that is a threat. But these men showed why you want to see, because class brings class. You understand? At the championship level, either you have it or you don't, and both men showed that they did have it, and they brought it, and they continued to bring it round after round after round. I remember in certain instances in the fight where Sean was turning Earl and putting him near the ropes, and banging at him, and then Earl was banging back. You understand? It was like ebb and flow. The very things that we talk about in boxing that we like to see, it all transpired in that fight. And it was highly contested. The two men, you have to take your hat off to that performance. It was the fight of the year because you had two elite fighters, champions, going at it and showing why that they are champions. Much respect to both camps, and I hope to see these guys mix it up again. And hopefully it's not years later, but soon. I would like to see those guys go at it again. You have anything else on that one you want to say, Reggie?
No, man, I absolutely agree. It was definitely one of those heyday era type of and high respects to both of them, man. And people want to see Shawn Porter made such a great account. But for him to go in there and fight the way he fought against Earl Spence, his name is back at the top of welterweight boxing. So we're currently hearing it, and his name is giving such a bad rap to Terrence Crawford right now, being that Crawford kind of trying to shun away Shawn Porter. And people, and by him doing that, it has put a black eye on who Terrence Crawford is in the sport, with him being that it seems that he doesn't want any of the smoke. Because Shawn Porter ain't no easy walk in the park. Shawn Porter probably give a heavyweight. That dude's a dog, man.
Big time. Big time. Much respect to both camps, as I said. What do you got next, bro?
All right, I got three more, man. My next one, Arthur Beterbiev versus Oleksiejczuk. I enjoyed this fight. I enjoyed the heck out of this because it's I think it's the first time we've seen these come together who were champions come together. Now, much respect to Volstik being on the guy, and much respect to Beterbiev for matching it up with each other. The outcome, I think Beterbiev is a monster in this division, and I like what he did because, and I hate that I even think of it this way it was almost like a get back for Volstik did against Adonis Stevenson, but it wasn't Volstik's fault. He fought how he's supposed to. But, I kind of wanted see somebody get some get back on Volstik. Plus, I don't know. So that's the other thing that put me against him. But I thought he was going to get Beterbiev all. And going into this thing, you watch him break Volstik ass down. And you watch him. It wasn't that he only broke Volstik down. He broke Teddy Atlas ass down. Teddy didn't know what to do. And I don't think it was really nothing they could do. This damn Tank and Beterbiev, who's very strong but very good technically, as from the standpoint of box. Jab was on point. The way he throws his hooks, the way he moves around the ring, quite swiftly, and his thing is just to break a guy down. He broke down a high volume fighter like Volstik. I think Volstik's activity is going to wear some down. Beterbiev, and Volstik was a dangerous guy in the division. This dude is dangerous, man. This Arthur. And it was real crazy to really see that Teddy Atlas being a trainer. He couldn't tell this dude anything. He put this dude in great danger. When he seen this fighter was getting the I don't want to cuss, he was getting the ish beat up. And he left this guy up in there coming off with some old Rocky type crap because it's the greatest influence to cats like Teddy Atlas. They think he's some type of real individual and some tough guy, but with the delusion, he almost cost his guy to ending up like Adonis Stevenson. As a matter of fact, after this beating that he took, because he had spotting on the brain, so he can thank Atlas for that shit. But Arthur Beterbiev Volstik was a great battle, but it was a battle where you seen the one true guy separate himself, and it's the one true guy to where Canelo thought he was a tough guy to move one step. but like a smart guy, he took his ass up out the division.
Yeah. I felt the same about Beterbiev's performance. I remarked he was like a light heavyweight George Foreman in there with his punches. And his punches to the body, the sound that they make, and the leverage and snap that he gets on the shots, he's very debilitating with his power. He can rule for a minute, and I think he can box a little bit too. You know, it's like he's a little bit crude but effective. And in an era where guys don't get in the best of shape, when the guys don't try to best themselves in the gym by learning and honing their skills, this is a guy who can thrive for a minute. He's kind of like a light heavyweight version of Costa Zoo. You know, it's really interesting to watch him go about his craft. Okay, we're running short on time. What you got next?
All right, my next one, I'm gonna get. Next is Josh Taylor versus, and this is a good fight, man. And two of the top guys at 140 going in here. Regis daring to be great, even being confident enough to go into this country, a country that's full of loyalists when it comes to their country. Everyone against him, but he locked in, didn't pay attention to the crowd, but who fought his fight. He fought Regis's fight and just outworked him. Outwill Regis every step of this fight. Anywhere you put this fight in, Josh Taylor had the advantages in my eyes, and he put on a great display of work against him. But it was a great fight. Regis battled on. Made a good account for himself as well. A separation in my eyes with Josh Taylor, and it just showed the true dog in this cat.
Yeah. I had said, I remarked going into this fight, especially because they were fighting on Taylor's home turf, I had said that Prograis was going to have to go in there and come outside of himself. In other words, do something that he doesn't normally do as a fighter to win this fight. And because he wasn't able to do that, because he basically he got a little lazy on the inside, he didn't understand that you have to take the fight to the guy on his home turf and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. He didn't realize those things, and he ended up losing the fight. But that's no slight to Josh Taylor. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. I was very disappointed in the effort that Prograis put forth, because I thought and had hoped that he would do the kind of things that I spoke about going into the fight, and he actually did none of it. And then at the end of the day, when the fight was over, he commended his conqueror and said the better man won and everything. But then later on, after he came back home and he was, wounds are healing and everything, and pride is floating out there, he said he would like a rematch. I don't think you want that, son. I don't think you want that. I think you need to rethink the sport of boxing and your place in it. So that's what I have to say about that one. What's that last one you got for us, bro?
Man, this last one is my fight of the year. I think I reigned a battle between. No, this is my fight of the year. I mean, not Sean. Yeah, Sean Porter and Earl second. This number one fight to me is Tony Harrison versus Jamal Charles. That fight was epic as hell to me, and it lived up to all the shit talking that Tony Harrison put out there. He went in that ring, and he outside of the conclusion of how it ended, Tony Harrison came in this thing and was I'll say he was being dominating inside this fight. He brought this fight to Charlo even after getting up. His whole plan of how he fought changed. He brought on the inside on. He worked Charlo down to the body, was beating Charlo on the inside. He withstood the early everything will go about doing early in the fight. He withstood all of that and will go on to put on his own display of, and he boxed The thing was, he got a little bit too comfortable, too lax. And I think with what the taunting and stuff was a little bit of him playing poker in there, because Charlo was doing effective things. Charlo showed that he has a lot of will. He's a dog. He ain't no pushover. He ain't no walkover, and he doesn't bow down. And he stuck you know, he put the pedal to the metal throughout this fight. He losing a majority of these rounds from. And in that exchange where Harrison trying to bang out with this dude rather than cruise away, possibly he wasn't going to win the fight based on put on this great display and possibly put him in an immediate rematch. He got caught with that punch, and Charlo did what a killer is supposed to do, and that's go in there and get the prey up out of the battle. So he did everything, but this fight lived up to everything that it was promoted and hyped up to be. Epic fight. But that's my final one right there.
And that's an excellent one to end the show on, because it was the most recent fight, and my goodness, it was so much better than the first fight. I mean, how can you not give credit to Jermell Charlo? Jermell Charlo endured a lot of ridicule and negative consideration coming out of that first fight. And the irony is, a lot of people didn't think that Harrison won the first fight. And the decision was a surprise, even to Harrison himself, even though he would not admit that. But the drama in it all began with the decision that was announced, how Charlo took that to heart, and his response to it in the post-fight press conferences, things like that, even in the promotion leading up to the rematch, that there was drama, and a great deal of drama that was brought to the forefront by Harrison and his gift for gab. It was something that you can have an appreciation for, because Harrison is an excellent boxer, and he showed that this fight. It was questioned about his ankle injury or whatever, but after seeing the fight and this rematch and assessing things, it's more than likely he did have something going on with the ankle. His mobility wasn't what it was in the first fight, which made him fight a different type of fight, and kudos to him for making those type of adjustments. He discovered something about Charlo that we did not know due to Charlo's success against certain opponents that he had fought prior to Harrison. Charlo is not an inside fighter, not in the least. And Harrison figured that out during this fight, and he got comfortable in what he was doing and the success that he was having. But he was dealing with a very dangerous fighter, a fighter who was hell-bent on taking the decision and putting it in his own hands and not in the hands of judges who can be biased and extremely biased. So there was drama in the fight. There was high competitiveness in the fight. And then we had a dramatic ending to the fight, which hands down closes out the year excellently. Even though we have another card coming up tomorrow night, I felt like this was really something that the fans could get into as well. But what a fight that it was. And salute to Jermell Charlo winning his title back and becoming a two-time world champion. Hats off to the brother, because he did it with his hands. He settled all. He didn't do the talking. He did all his talking in the ring with his activity. And that's the way to get it done. Salute to you, Jermell Charlo. Reggie, go ahead and give us some last words, bro, and let the people know where they can follow you, man.
Yes, indeed, man. Man, great show, man. I running through this list, man. They continue to deliver in 20. I enjoy the hell out of the sport. They gave us so many fights. I got a fight to watch, which puts me to where I ain't about to do shit. I ain't going nowhere. Don't put no plans for me to go out. No, I'm watching boxing. So that's how my 2019 was. Get the kids out to play early. Rest of the day, I'm in here waiting for these fights. But thank you, man. Enjoyable conversation. Thanks everybody in the chat. Also, make sure you hit that like button if you hit that like button for us. But you guys can catch me at Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens. Come through, catch the content, and subscribe if you haven't. So that's all I got, OG.
Yeah, much respect to you, bro. And it's been a pleasure working with you this year, and I look forward to working with you more next year. This has been great. I think we got a really solid thing going here. I want to say shout out to everybody that participated in our chat this evening. I know we ran a few minutes over, but we were trying to get it all in, and we did get it all in. And we hope to be presenting more wonderful content for you for the new year. This is Stormybman, and I want to say shout out to the LDBC and Happy New Year to everybody that's out there listening. And we will see you in 2020. Peace.